Welcome to the very first episode of the CALS Report. Ever wondered what it takes to lead in the world of college sports? Well, you're in the right place. The Collegiate Athletics Leadership Symposium started as a professional development conference for college sports leaders. Today, it's more than an event. It's a thriving community. The CALS Report is an extension of that community, offering fresh insights, experiences, and stories that go beyond the event itself. Whether you're a current leader, an aspiring administrator, or just curious about what goes on behind the scenes, this podcast is your go-to source for understanding the challenges and opportunities in college athletics and the leaders shaping its future. I'm Ryan Bradley, Vice President for Strategic Communications at the University of Alabama, and I've been deeply involved with CALS since it began in 2011. Having witnessed its growth firsthand, I'm excited to kick off the inaugural episode with content that truly embodies the spirit of CALS. First, we'll hear from Arkansas AD Hunter Yurachek. He'll not only share what's on his mind as the fall semester begins, but also offer invaluable advice for rising administrators and give us an exclusive preview of what's in store for CALS 24 in Fayetteville this October. Then, don't miss our segment featuring a trio of MAC ADs and CALS veterans. Jeff Mitchell from Ball State, Bryan Blair from Toledo, and Randale Richmond from Kent State. They'll share their career journeys and unique perspectives on CALS, giving us a glimpse into the path that has shaped their leadership. So let's dive in. On the other side, I'll be joined by CALS Director Will Reese. This is the CALS Report, where the conversation continues long after the event ends. Welcome in to the first ever episode of the CALS Report. I'm Ryan Bradley, pleased to be joined by my friend and the director of CALS, Will Reese. Will, in some ways, I feel like this episode is 13 years in the making. Why don't you tell our listeners who maybe don't know exactly how we got here with the evolution of CALS?
Well, of course, the event started in 2011 here in my hometown of Tulsa. And since that point, we've had 13 CALS in 12 cities. And of course, we've got the 14th CALS coming up in October 6th through 8th. In Fayetteville, hosted by the University of Arkansas and Hunter Yurachek. And so we're super excited about that. But along the way, as the event has the word's gotten out, has grown, as time has gone by, we've looked for all kinds of ways to serve and add value to that group. We've done that through a few things. You and I started working on the CALS Report, our e-magazine, a few years ago, where we wrapped up our CALS and had some original content. We've started our CALS One Day, which is our regional June CALS, which we're excited to have our third one this past June at Tennessee, hosted by Danny White and his crew. Had a great group of folks there. I'd mentioned earlier we were 12 CALS in 13 cities. Well, of course, one in 2020 was virtual. And leading up to that virtual CALS, that summer we had 6 what we called CALS Conversations. You can still go find them on YouTube if you want to see the best practices in keeping everything sanitized back in that time period. Want to revisit that. But it was at that time that we started, that the seed was planted. Now, when we got out of that, where our world was there, everybody was kind of tired of Zoom and being on it. And really there was so much going on in their day-to-day lives that we didn't press it at that point. But you and I have been talking about it for several years. And now we're excited to finally get this going. So, Ryan, why don't you tell them a little bit about what they can expect from the pod?
Yeah, so we're going to have a number of different segments, and the goal is really to try to lean in and have conversations with the leaders who are shaping collegiate athletics today, talk to them about things like what they're grappling with, what are those front burner issues that they're trying to navigate. We know there's no shortage of those right now in college athletics, but we also want to learn more about their career path and professional development, and hopefully glean from them some perspective and insights that would really help our audience of emerging leaders, which we know we have a growing list of aspiring athletic administrators who are part of the CALS community, to help them on their path, on their journey, to learn from the experiences of those who are now leading in those major roles, whether it's as an AD, a deputy AD, or whatever the case may be. And we'll have other conversations as well. So we're starting today with what we call the big interview, which is going to be our first interview with Hunter Yurachek, as you mentioned, our host for CALS 2024 in Fayetteville. And then our second segment is also one I'm really excited about. Will, why don't you tell them about what we have in store on the other side of that interview with Hunter?
Yeah, so for our second segment, we're calling it the lobby, and it truly is hopefully a representation of the CALS community as we hand over the mic, if you will, to three MAC ADs: Jeff Mitchell of Ball State, Randale Richmond of Old Dominion, and Bryan Blair of Toledo. Not only are they MAC ADs, but they are CALS vets that have seen the event, and we've seen them come from attendee to now they've kind of crossed over where they'll be on our panel in Arkansas, on our panels, and part of our faculty. But that is a fantastic segment where they talk a lot about their path to where they are, how they continue to get better, how they strive for growth. It is really, really good stuff. And we're excited about the direction we can get this started off.
Absolutely. And these first two conversations obviously are going to be very CALS centric because we are on the precipice of CALS 2024. But this is something that we're going to continue well on the other side of CALS 24 and plan to have these conversations each and every month and really dive into a lot of the hot topic issues that are going on in the industry today. So without further ado, we're ready to jump in. Enjoy this conversation. The big interview with Hunter Yurachek, University of Arkansas Athletic Director. It's time now for the big interview here on the CALS Report, and I'm pleased to be joined by the Vice Chancellor and Director of Athletics at the University of Arkansas, Hunter Yurachek. Hunter, thanks for making time to be with us. How are things in Fayetteville today?
Ryan, well, thanks first and foremost for the opportunity. And things are great in Fayetteville. Students are starting to make their way back on campus. We have sorority rush going on. We had our first event last night, women's soccer game. And so things are coming fast and furious right now, as I'm sure there are on many campuses this fall.
Hunter, I know it's a busy time of year on college campuses. As you're back from summer vacation and preparing for the fall, what is the atmosphere like within an athletic department on a college campus? And what are you most excited about as you gear up for the fall?
This is an exciting time of year, I think, for all of us on college campus because your energy is back on your campus as your student athletes come back for your fall sports, football, women's soccer, volleyball, cross country, and then your students are coming back. There's sorority rush going on this week on our campus, the traffic, the fighting for parking spots once again. And I just love the energy on a college campus. One of the reasons I enjoy the profession that I am in is the energy that the young folks bring to us. And really what my staff prefers I do this time of year is stay out of their way as they're getting ready for soccer and volleyball and football. Really for me, just to look at the bigger picture of everything that's going on in our athletic program and this industry as a whole.
Now, are you able to get away from the desk and be out at practices and spending time with your teams, or is there too much on your plate to do that?
No, that is what I say is the icing on the cake for a director of athletics. I love getting out and going to soccer practice, to volleyball practice, to football practice. I don't make it out to the cross-country course quite as much as maybe I need to, but I love watching our student athletes train. I love watching our student athletes compete and doing what they love. And for me, that's the reward of this business is the time you get to spend in and around practices and gymnasiums with your student athletes.
All right, we're just a little over a month away from CALS 2024, which will be hosted by the University of Arkansas, October 6th through the 8th. With everything you have going and one of the busiest times of year for any college athletic director, why was it important for you to partner with our good friend Will Reese and to bring this event to Fayetteville?
Ryan, I've been in this business now for 32 years. And as I was coming up as a young intern, assistant director of marketing, there's so many people that poured into me that were mentors for me, that taught me things about this profession, allowed me to grow within this profession. And that's what Will and CALS is all about, is connecting the next generation of leaders in college athletics. And I feel like that's part of my responsibility as an athletic director at the University of Arkansas in the Southeastern Conference, is to help develop tomorrow's leaders in our industry. And so Will and I have developed a friendship through CALS, and I've been a constant faculty member for Will. I think it's one of the best kind of professional development events in our industry. And so I'm fully supportive of Will and what he's doing. And back during COVID, I'd offered the opportunity for CALS to come here to Arkansas because I thought it made sense for him. but he deferred to this year, and we're excited to have this event in Northwest Arkansas and on our campus.
We are so much looking forward to it. With all of the dynamic changes that we're seeing in college athletics right now, how valuable is it for you and your peers to have a forum like CALS to get together and to talk openly and candidly about the challenges you're facing and how you're working on your campuses to address them?
Right. I think it's a great opportunity for my colleagues across this industry from across the country as we try to work through what the House settlement implementation looks like, what name, image, and likeness continues to look like, the transfer report, and all the things that we are battling day in and day out and trying to find solutions for but at the same time, we all want to make and have our own competitive advantages. But I think it's great to share ideas and best practices with your colleagues so that we can do what's best for college athletics. I think too many times that we keep our institutional hats on, and I think CALS gives you an opportunity to really take your institutional hat off and put your college athletics industry hat on and have a great exchange of ideas that we can all take back to our respective campuses to make college athletics better.
CALS is all about equipping and connecting leaders. So I want to ask you, while I have the opportunity, what career advice do you have for those emerging athletic administrators, those assistant, associate, maybe senior associate ADs, in terms of how they approach professional development and relationship building within the industry?
Whether it's this industry or other industries, I mean, the relationships you build are a key component to your success. I mean, you want to be a sponge wherever you're at and try to learn as much as you can. But to find a mentor or a few mentors in this industry, people that are willing to kind of pour into you, give back to you, I think is incredibly important. CALS offers an opportunity to do that. And then to stay connected with your mentors, right? I mean, I've got a stack of handwritten notes, probably 200 or 300 that I keep on my desk. And it's a constant reminder is that there's a lost art of the handwritten note, right, Ryan? Where it's so easy to send someone a text message to thank them for something, and that's a great thing to do. But that handwritten note, I think, is just a little extra special element that I think is really important. That as you're coming through this profession, because I tell people like the handwritten note, like I see that, and that leaves an impression on me as a young for an up and coming person in this industry. And I keep these notes because I go through them from time to time. If I'm looking for a position, I've got somebody a handwritten note for them. I've got a card, and I remember where I met them at and the impression they made on me. And they may be somebody I call or do a little bit of research for a position that I have available on our campus. And then this industry is so small. Don't ever burn a bridge, because you never know when you're going to have to go back across that bridge. And so my final piece of advice is just be patient, because every journey, if your ultimate goal is to be a director of athletics, every athletic director has a different journey to that chair. And some ascend faster than others. Some get a break faster than others get a break. But the thing you need to do is just be patient and kind of be where you're at, learn where you're at, be the best you can be at that institution and the role that you're at, and your opportunities will come.
That's great insight. As you reflect on your career progression and some of the opportunities you had along the way, who are those mentors or those influencers that stand out in your memory that really helped you along your journey?
I mean, the first such mentor I had, I think every AD I had the privilege of working with, whether it be Ron Wellman at Wake Forest, Todd Turner at Vanderbilt, and Jeff Comfort at Western Carolina, Mac Rhodes. I've all learned something about how to manage a team, how to manage a department from each of those individuals. But one of my first mentors in this industry was Larry Gallo. He was at Wake Forest at the time as a senior associate AD at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, was a former AD at Indiana State. And Larry just kind of was a great mentor to me about when his kids were much older than mine at the time at Wake Forest, and I was just starting to have a family, and he was talking to me about how important it was to be a father and to be a great husband and not let this industry consume you and try to find some balance in your life. And then as far as job searching goes, he always told me, he said, Hunter, always be running to something. Don't be running away from something. He said, there's some places that are not a good fit for you. There's some bad jobs in college athletics, and don't just be looking to ascend that ladder. Make sure you're running to something, not away from something. And that's one of the best pieces of advice I've tried to carry with me for the last 32 years in this industry.
I know you're a family man. You've got 3 boys. What does work-life balance look like for you in this role with all the demands that you have on you, and how do you try to make that space available for your staff?
Yeah, one of the things I have done for the longest time is I try to get up early in the morning, roughly 5 o'clock every morning, and that 5 to 7 o'clock window is what it calls my time. Where my wife is not up. Generally, my kids, when they were in the house, were not up. And I would get up with our dog, and I'd get a cup of coffee and have a time in devotion and prayer and read a little bit in a leadership book or something else that I was interested in. And then I would go work out. And so I'd get those things that I thought were important to build my mind and to build my spirit and to take care of myself before my day got started. And so that was the first thing I did to try to find a little balance to make sure that I was taking care of myself first and foremost. And then as my kids were in their years, where my 3 boys, where they were playing sports, I tried to make sure that I put their sporting events on my work calendar so that my administrative assistant would schedule around them, or I would schedule around them and make them a priority because that they were on my calendar. And I've given up some things along the way. I've given up playing golf, hunting, fishing, some of those things that my friends not in college athletics had the opportunities to do, to make sure that I had that balance. And or if I was going to go play golf, now I go play golf with my boys because that's the time that we can spend together. And so I think you have to be very intentional in this industry to make sure you find some balance. I think putting the things that are very important to you on your calendar will help you get that balance. And then carving out a time just for you. I think that's incredibly important to our mental health and our physical health, to make sure that we're taking care of ourselves.
I would imagine the job has changed a lot since you first became an AD. When you think about the current challenges that you're facing in the seat you sit in, what skills and experiences do you think are most important for these emerging leaders to possess in order for them to be able to be in a position to successfully navigate these types of issues?
Well, you have to be a constant learner because it is changing day by day, and you have to want to be a sponge of that information and take that in. You have to be incredibly, I think, nimble and willing to change and adjust, because if you don't embrace what we're going through right now in this industry, I don't believe you can survive that. So it's constant change right now. And for someone that got into this industry 31, 32 years ago, it's things that I never would have thought were going to happen as far as how we're compensating student athletes in this day and age, and not just name, image, and likeness, but what's going on in collectives and what we're getting ready to do in the implementation of the House settlement. And so you have to have an incredibly open mind. You have to be willing to change and adapt. And then you have to embrace this. And as a leader, you have to really be out in front of that and make sure that your staff, that your team, that your coaches, that the administration, from your chancellor and your president board, that you're managing up to, that they understand that, hey, I've got this. I can handle what's going on in our industry right now. Here's where I need some assistance. Don't ever not ask for help where you need it from other people, but you have to be the one that embraces the change first and foremost, that has a positive attitude out in front of your staff and your team about that change. And again, you've just got to be willing to change, because this industry is changing, whether we like it or not, and you better embrace that moving forward.
I would imagine you're getting pulled in all types of different directions. You talked earlier about your calendar. I'd love some insight into how you manage your calendar to make sure that you're spending the most time on the things that matter most in terms of what's going on in college athletics right now.
Yeah, Ryan, it's a great question, because I talked about earlier about the icing on the cake, and what I enjoy doing is going out and watching our student athletes practice and watching them compete. And I feel like that I've had to put that on a side burner, not on the front burner as I'd like it to be. I haven't had as much time to get around our building and our facilities and visit with our staff, because I think that's incredibly important, to be visible amongst your staff, because it's what is consuming a great deal of my time right now is the House settlement, and that's its implementation, working with our collectives to make sure that we have the resources to fulfill the obligations that we have through our collectives, and making sure our coaches have a great understanding of where this industry is heading, because they're on the front lines of this recruiting. We have a signing day coming up in November for the majority of our sports, and another one for football in December, and so many unanswered questions regarding the house settlement that we're recruiting young men and women to come to our campuses in 25 and 26 under the kind of the new guidelines of the house settlement. And we have so many unanswered questions. So it's getting out and about and meeting individually with each of our coaches and answering their questions as they're going out recruiting and their staffs are going out recruiting. And so I will tell you that I think I wake up in the morning thinking about the house settlement and name, image, likeness, and the transfer portal, and I go to bed thinking about those things, and they consume my time. And I'm trying to make sure that the other aspects of my job, that engagement with their student athletes and engagement with their staff, don't fall by the wayside, because I think they're incredibly important as well.
I think you're close to 7 years now at the University of Arkansas. When you reflect on your time there, what are you most proud of? What have been the most memorable and maybe rewarding experiences for you in your tenure there?
You know, we have tried to maintain a broad-based, successful athletic program. We have 19 sports programs, 465 student athletes, and we have wanted to provide an opportunity for all 19 of those sports programs and all 465 student athletes to have success in the classroom and in their respective athletic venues. And we've got something we call the Razorback graduation rate, where student athletes who exhaust their athletic eligibility at the University of Arkansas, did they leave here with a degree? And over that almost 7-year period, 98% of our student athletes who've exhausted their athletic eligibility here at the University of Arkansas have left here with a degree. Now, in full disclosure with that rate, some of those are transfer students that transferred in as graduate students that had their degree, but they still exhausted their athletic eligibility. And I think that's our first and foremost, our priority that we've lost sight of, is making sure these young men and women get their education and leave with a degree. The second piece is, during that tenure, we've won 36 Southeastern Conference championships. Among 12 of our 19 different sports have won an SEC championship. And we finished in the top 10 2 out of the last 4 years in the Learfield Directors Cup. And those are good measurements of a successful, broad-based athletic program. And so those are the things that I'm most excited about. When our student athletes have success, I have success as an athletic director, we have success as an athletic program. My success, or our department's success, doesn't come before our student athlete success. And so we talk about it day in and day out, that our focus is on the success of our student athletes. And so when you ask what I'm most proud of over a 7-year tenure here at the University of Arkansas, it is the success that our student athletes have had in the classroom and in their athletic venues.
I know with all the changes that we're seeing and the ones on the horizon, it's easy to perhaps get overwhelmed with all of the challenges that the industry is facing right now. But when you look beyond that, what do you see as maybe the greatest opportunities for you as a leader, for your athletic program, to evolve and adapt to this and create real opportunities for your student athletes and your programs?
Sure. You know, Ryan, I thought we were at the forefront of this when it launched, when NIL became a reality in July of 2021. We had hired a senior associate athletic director for student athlete brand development. We had formed this entity called Flagship within our Department of Athletics, which was our NIL educational program that we had partnered with our business school. And we're teaching our student athletes about negotiating contracts, establishing LLCs, being true entrepreneurs, how to file their taxes and things of that nature. And so I want to make sure that we try to stay ahead of the game here as the House settlement comes to fruition and we start implementing that. And so our biggest opportunity is, how can we maybe do it a little bit differently and a little bit better than our competitors in this industry, to make sure that we're able to maintain a broad-based athletic program. What I don't want to do is to get to a point, because of the House settlement, is where we begin to tier sports at the University of Arkansas and say that one is more important than the other. I think it's very obvious that football, men's basketball, and in the Southeastern Conference, baseball are your revenue-generating sports. But we have, again, 19 sports programs, 465 student athletes. They're all important. Their success is all important. Our women's swimming team practices just as hard as our football players, and our softball players practice just as hard as our men's basketball players, and they deserve the opportunity to have success in their sport. And so our biggest challenge is maintaining a broad-based, successful athletic program here at the University of Arkansas. And we want to be able to implement the House settlement just a little bit differently so we're able to continue that.
Yeah, and along those lines, I know we're just past the Summer Olympics in Paris. There were a lot of Razorbacks participating in that. And just talk a little bit about all the success that you saw from some of your current and former student athletes in the Olympics, and how much the investment that your university and others make into those Olympic programs makes a difference when it comes to Olympic competition.
Yeah, and I'll speak specifically to the University of Arkansas. We had 25 current indoor former student athletes representing 4 different sports, men's track and field, women's track and field, gymnastics, and golf that participated in the Olympic Games. They won 14 medals amongst those 25. I think it was, if I remember, there was 4 gold, 7 silver, and 3 bronze, or I may have the silver bronze backwards, but it was 14 medals. And then you look at what they kept showing statistics about college athletics and how many former collegiate athletes were represented at various countries in the Olympic Games and how many medals former collegiate athletes brought back. And I think it just kind of helps really put an exclamation point on what college athletics means to young men and women. And it's not just about football and basketball. There's so many other things that happen within college athletic programs across our country that prepare young men and women for life after college, for Olympic Games. And we don't ever want to lose sight about how incredibly positive the collegiate athletic model is.
That's great. All right, I'm going to let you get out of here on this one. Like we mentioned at the top of our conversation, CALS 2024 is going to be in Fayetteville in early October. Give us just a sneak peek. What do you have planned for us, and what do you hope our attendees will experience during their visit to Fayetteville?
Well, first and foremost, I hope we have great weather because we have some outdoor events planned on that Sunday. We've got the Big Red's Rooftop Bar, which we claim is the largest outdoor sports bar in college athletics. It's on the top of the Broyle Center overlooking Razorback Stadium. So we're going to start the Sunday evening festivities with the reception up there in Big Red's Rooftop, and then we're going to go down, hopefully, onto the field. Will tells me it'll be the first ever dinner that was on a playing surface, and go down to the field at Razorback Stadium and have dinner. Doug McMillan, who's the CEO of Walmart, has agreed to come and be our guest speaker for that event. Doug has become a great friend. I'm going to do a little Q&A with Doug that night, and then we're going to have a great event on Monday and Tuesday with Will just sent me the itinerary and the list of ADs that are coming during an incredibly busy time in the fall to pour back into young administrators. And I think it speaks volumes about Will and who he is and what CALS has become, that so many people are coming to this community. But it is a great community. If you like biking, if you like hiking, there'll be lots to do. And then I know Will's got a great 48, 72 hours planned for all the attendees.
Well, we are absolutely looking forward to it and very grateful to you, Hunter, and your staff for all the time and resources that you have put into planning to host this event. I'm sure it will be first class. We're excited to be on the Hill. Thanks again for taking time to visit with us today. Best of luck with the fall, and we look forward to seeing you very soon on the Hill for CALS 2024.
Thank you, Ryan, and we'll see you soon in Fayetteville.
Welcome to the CALS Report podcast. I'm Ball State Athletic Director Jeff Mitchell, joined by Bryan Blair, Director of Athletics at Toledo, and Randale Richmond, Athletic Director at Kent State. And guys, I think it's pretty cool that we've all been invited to do this, and I think I speak for all of us to say that we're thrilled to be a part of this first ever CALS podcast. And we're going to have a conversation today to talk about CALS and what it's meant to each of us. I think we each have unique experiences to share, and we'll share some advice on networking and continued career growth. So, guys, it's great to see you both. And CALS is just around the corner, the 2024 edition hosted by Hunter Yurachek at Arkansas. And this is the 14th edition of CALS, the first one held at Tulsa back in 2011. The question to start is, what was your first CALS experience? Where was it, and where were you from an institution standpoint? What was your role? What were you doing at the time?
Wow, we're taking it way back. I'm not sure my memory works like that. Will's lucky he does a good job because to turn us into guinea pigs for this first one, I owe him a lot, but he does a good job. So we'll do this for him. I think for me, it was probably, I think at North Texas, maybe. It was my first or one of my first, certainly, CALS experience. But I mean, frankly, it's been a staple. It's something I never try to miss because it's almost like the culture of CALS takes on a different flavor than maybe some of the other professional development events. It's everybody's more open, more relaxed, more willing to share, and more or less give real talk in a lot of moments. And I look at the agenda and I get excited to see what else is on there and who else is on there, because you just get to hear these voices and I walk away inspired, but also walking away feeling like, okay, we're all in this together. And I think these positions can be really lonely at the top from a leadership standpoint, and to have conversations with a whole bunch of other people. I tell my friends, hey, that means I didn't get left out of the group chat, right? I'm not missing the communication. I'm not missing a memo. We're all thinking and feeling the same things. And so CALS is family to me, and certainly always will be.
Yeah. First off, this is pretty darn cool, man. Being on this with you too, knowing the journeys that we've been on throughout our careers, that let this be the one. That's pretty special, and it's in tune to what Will does and how CALS works. He's a grand understander of people and personalities and how they engage, right? And that's how it all worked for me. Lauren Adi was the first one to tell me about it, and I believe my first experience was in Oklahoma. And I remember walking into that space, and it was their weight room, and they had all these different tables that they're laying out, making this grand event. And I just remember seeing all the weights in the background, really just thinking, like, if Brian gets here, I wonder what he can squat. Like on the way back here in the back, I was like, man, I've been repping out 225. Man, I could probably punch it out a couple of times, But that was one of my biggest memories of it, and it's just really cool environment. But because it's like seeing the people you either read in the D1 ticker or the people you've seen on TV all walking around like it's regular. Like it's like being, in the space where all the people that you want to learn from all right there, and they're just talking and engaging in a regular manner. And then it's like the cameras aren't on. It's a safe space, so you can get actual real information about how you can lead, things that you didn't even imagine would be the case in whatever position or growth that you're looking for. And then the biggest surprise for me was how engaging Will was along the way. Like that was interesting to me, because usually we have something with all those heavy hitters in the room. Being your first year in it, you're not thinking that the person who's organizing it all is going to speak with you. Then you hear about his family, and you meet the whole crew and how they put it on like a real family barbecue. Then you realize it's something different.
I mean, to that point, it doesn't actually make sense, right? Like, think about it, right? Like, we're talking about a basketball agent and his family putting on an event for college directors of athletics that are hosted by a campus. It breaks all rules of convention and conferences and professional development. That's why I think it works, because it's so unique, it's so different, it's completely cut from a different mold. So I just had to plug it in. When you said different and talked about Will and his family, it's so much different.
But it comes from a great place in his heart, and I think he's attracted leaders that feel the same way he does about developing others, and I think that's why it works too, right? Because it's not necessarily stated that way, but it's a mission-centric type of professional development. My first one was at North Carolina. This was back in 2012. I remember seeing. I think I got my first Twitter account in 2011. I think it was around. I remember seeing these posts about this thing called CALS, the Collegiate Athletics Leadership Symposium, and I was intrigued by it. Didn't know what it was, and then a year passed, and all of a sudden I get an invitation, and somebody must have put me in the pipeline to be invited, and so I went, and so I'm heading into my 13th year of CALS now. But the North Carolina one was really awesome, and that was hosted by Bubba Cunningham. Bubba, by the way, of course, a former Ball State athletic director. And I was introduced to these people. Randale, you were talking about it, and Brian, these people that you see in the ticker, and you just you're a sponge, and you're just soaking up all this knowledge, and so it's been a can't miss event for me year over year because of the uniqueness I think that we've described. And what else separates CALS from other professional development programs? And we've been involved in whether it's Lead One, NACTA initiatives, and they're all valuable. but there is something a little bit special about what CALS does, and that it's any further
Yeah, I'll
commentary
jump
on
in there.
that from you
It's
guys.
like an all-star game. You know what I mean? Like the feelings is a little bit different as you're in there. Each person who's up on stage, who's giving a presentation on whatever topic, because you do. I mean, Will does a good job of setting the stage for the type of vulnerability that's permitted in the room because of it being structured the way it's structured. It's like you're really learning the different moves or how you're going to perform when you get back on campus, like in the arena. So you see those old clips of Kobe talking to Jordan, or you hear KG talking about Kobe's first, all-star game, or any of those clips and stories that you hear about. It's kind of like that. Like, and then because people are accessible, you're able to get some tidbits to take back. And it doesn't feel it's structured, but it doesn't feel structured. Like so each of those sessions, none of them are begrudging to go to either. Like you're right there ready to go because you're going to get something tangible. And the all-stars are right there, like on the stage. So that's how it felt for me.
I mean, I think the notion that, and Jeff, you mentioned that you get nominated or you get included through a referral, right, is somebody that went to that, enjoyed that. I'm a big believer in iron sharpens iron, and you are who you surround yourself with. And I think that materializes at CALS because you got invited or you got selected because of a certain reason and you're pulled in to this family, and then you interact with each other. And then I think, again, going back to the accessibility, and Randale touched on it, of these giants or titans of the industry are just walking the halls and willing to engage. And I think it's neat now, taking a step back and you say, okay, well, now I'm an AD and I've got individuals coming to me and say, well, what's it like to be an AD, or what should I be thinking about, or how do you experience it? Like, I'm gonna be honest, it took me some time to settle into like that reality, that while I still see myself as on that journey to a place, and certainly I am, I got a lot to learn, a lot to get better at. For some people, you've reached a mark that they hope to achieve one day. And the fact that all of us are sitting there trying to learn all at the same time, I think it just creates a really cool recipe.
I want to circle back to an early part of the question because I want us to touch on it.
Yeah.
When we first went to CALS, where were we? What positions were we in? I was an assistant athletic director at Santa Clara University, overseeing compliance. That's where I was when I first went to CALS.
I think I was senior associate AD or associate AD at Rice. I'm overseeing compliance with a little bit of sport administration, but definitely compliance office.
Yeah, Brian and our Avengers parallel continues because I was at Old Dominion University at the time, senior associate AD, compliance, academic, student athlete development, all that stuff, man. But with the idea of wanting to be an AD one day, but it wasn't until I got with Wood Seelig that he really started to show me all these other different pathways that there were. Like I said earlier, I gave a plug to Lauren D. She's the one who told me about it and got my name. Started rolling. You don't have any idea where it goes after that, but those two people were very influential in getting me started from that particular role. Only been up since there, so that's a blessing.
So let's stay with that, just from a networking standpoint. We'll name drop.
We haven't started that already? My bad.
But it's so critical, right, that we align with people that want to be around enlightened individuals and want to help you grow. And certainly I think the three of us take that to heart, and we do that in our own organizations. But the importance of networking as you've grown in your career, and I mean, for me, and again, we're plugging CALS here, but were it not for CALS, I'm not sure that I'd have the network that I have today, because the vast majority of it is as a result of, now my almost 13 years of attending CALS and having authentic relationships with people with whom I've met over that time. So curious about your thoughts on that.
I mean, I think networking to me is one of my superpowers, if I call it that. And I say that humbly because I'm not very smart, but I try to get really smart people around me and glean thoughts and ideas from them to pull in to make myself better, whatever. And there's a lot of different examples, right? We all go through stuff and it's, hey, Randale, what are you thinking here? Hey, Jeff, what are you thinking here? Whatever it may be. But I would say even take that a step further. Like, the most important thing, or one of the biggest things we do, is hire coaches. And I've really leaned into, and my mentors have taught me this, the value of using your network when hiring coaches to really get to the bottom of who somebody is and who's actually going to be a good fit, which ultimately makes you better at your job, which ultimately means you get to sit on the stage for a lot longer and hopefully have a long career in this industry, right? So there's certainly networking, and some people do it network for jobs. I don't believe in that. I call it network for knowledge, and really reach out to individuals and try to make yourself better Again, that iron sharpens iron concept is so important. But opportunities like Cal give you that in an informal setting where maybe at some other conferences there's just so many massive amounts of people and there's such a range in titles, responsibilities, experience levels. It's almost impossible to navigate. And I think CALS does it in a fashion where you're a little bit closer top to bottom in terms of age and experience in that room. And so it just makes it easy to navigate and get a hold of people and start to build authentic relationships based out of curiosity, not, hey, can I run up to you and give you a business card because I want you to hire me one day. I think that's a separator for CALS as a whole.
That's great. Authentic relationships based out of curiosity. That's a bar right there. Stay with another bar because I love hip hop so much, Yeah, sprinkle. Jay-Z, your network determines your net worth. And I don't look at net worth as in just cash. You know what I mean? It's that mining of knowledge like Brian was talking about. And being that room from Will Reese is how I met Ren Baker, was able to dominate him in a game of Pop-A-Shot that lives on forever. Hey, and if you're watching this, Ren, I got the mic and you don't, so the story's the story. That's how that works. You know what I mean? But no, I remember being there. My first ones, I always sit in the front of the room, and people think that, oh man, Randale's so studious. Now I get distracted quickly, so I have to sit in the front to make sure I stay on point and focus. But being up there, I engaged so many different people, so I began a habit of just taking notes. And I would just categorize it, who all the people were presenting, what the topic was, how they responded. And I had a folder that I created years ago, Path to the Chair, right? Wanting to be an AD one day. And I would put each year that I went to CALS in that folder. And I would go back to that folder. But what happened my second year at CALS, people saw that I was taking copious notes. It first started with just my general friend group. Then it became like, hey, I got these notes. Do you want them? So I'm serving the industry. And then, the energy you give is what you manifest. That's Big Sean, right? Another bar coming back. That energy started to come back to me. Like when I needed to reach out to someone, it was like, this is the first time I ever heard from Randale, is when he needs something from me. It's like, nah, this guy out of nowhere gave me his notes. They're decent notes. And then all of a sudden now we're friends or we're engaging. So then I just need a perspective on something. I don't feel awkward reaching out. And heck, a lot of people responded because of that. So that networking thing is not, I hate to even call it networking. It really is an exploration of knowledge and engagement.
Hey, Jeff, I just learned two things. One, Randale and I are really not good friends because I've yet to receive those notes. And two, if I don't make CALS, I know I got a cheat sheet that I can circle back on. I would fill me in all the latest happenings. So, Will, don't worry, I'm not paying any money to go this year. I'm going to just get Randale's notes because we're going to be better friends going forward.
I got to say this because when you say you're not very smart, man, that made me feel like I was in trouble because I've been telling everybody you're our Tony Stark of the Mac. So we're in a lot of trouble.
It's interesting with Randale when you talk about those notes and you talk about those folders. And Brian, you recently posted something on social media about a letter you wrote yourself or something to that effect. And it was like 10 years ago, 14 years ago, something like that, about, hey, the path to the chair, something to that effect. I've done the same thing, either digitally or in a folder in my drawer, and taking the information from CALS and putting it in there and being able to refer to it, especially some of the notes from sitting ADs about what it's like in the first year, or dealing with issues that are impacting our industry, and you write them down and then you go back and refer to them, and all of a sudden it becomes a part of your education, right? And whether it's interviewing for a job or whether it's substantive information that we use every day now in the roles in which we serve, and I think that we have taken the opportunity to go to CALS, the people that we've met, and the lessons that we've learned from those interactions that are very tangible outcomes of going and investing in ourselves in a non-selfish way, right? We're becoming better so that we can in turn serve our institutions in a more meaningful and productive way. And from a education standpoint, from a networking standpoint, any other advice that you guys may want to impart through this medium to people that are interested in going to CALS or haven't been going
Brian,
as
that was
regularly
fire,
as we
by
have.
the way. And I don't know that you've received how impactful the imagery of that was. Oftentimes people just think you end up in a place. They don't realize all the late nights and all the grind and all the doubts, and whether it's imposter syndrome or it's, setbacks, or it's the statistics that tell us three that we're not supposed to be ADs based off of starting in compliance. Brian, again, I don't know if you realize how impactful that was. I didn't answer the question. I just wanted to come back to like, hey, listen, that gave me chills when I saw it. You can only hit like a couple, like it gave me chills when I saw it. So, Jeff, you can have Brian answer the question, but I just wanted to give him his flowers on that one. That was fire.
No, I appreciate that. It's interesting, right? Because you go to CALS, and for me, I'm like you two, like I'm taking notes. I'm like, not that I want to be that guy, but like I aspire to be in that position of influence and impact the industry, right? And then when you're first starting out, I don't even know who told me to write a 5 and 10 year plan. But I remember I had these little note cards made when I was in South Carolina, because the first time I had SEC money, right? So I could get my own note cards. And I wrote down 5 and 10 and the steps I thought. But I put that puzzle together based on a whole lot of different factors, one of them being environments like CALS, where you see different people. And I say, okay, Randale became an AD, and here's the steps that he took to get there. Jeff became AD, here's the steps. Okay, how does that jive with what I'm trying to do? How can I build my own path? And here's where I want to be in 5, 10, and then to look back on that and say, holy cow, like you got there a little faster than you thought you would, but you did follow the steps in a lot of ways. And so now I'm challenged with, okay, what's that next 5 to 10 year look like? And I struggle a little bit with that. I try to spend some time on vacation, ironing that out, to do it as clearly, as concisely as I did when I was first entering the industry, to do that now. But I think that's a challenge for all of us, to start to write down what we want to be and think about it in terms of impact. But CALS, you're surrounded by role models on one end, you're surrounded by counterparts on the other end. And I just think that equation of those individuals creates a really compelling fabric for what that event is.
Yeah.
What about do's and don'ts of networking? Randale, feel free to jump in. Sorry.
I don't know if there are do's and don'ts. Everyone responds to different things with inputs and and outputs, right? So what I mean by that tangibly is, I don't mind certain transactional relationships when someone's reaching out just to get something, time to time. I don't necessarily mind that. I'm more of a relational person, so I want to engage with somebody with the mask off and just really connect and have a real substantive experience, right? So that's going to be my the foundational most of the time. If there needs to be a transactional relationship, I understand those. They have a space for it. I want to fill my cup mostly with substantive meat and potatoes of engagements. So people will tell you they don't make it always, transactional, or reach out only when you need something. I tell you what, my family don't agree with that. They reach out anytime they need anything, and they don't care if they ain't talked to me in a month, because again, the relationship's just different. So it just depends on sometimes what you have with that person. So the one thing I will say though, whomever you are and however you engage, interact, just make sure it's authentic and consistently you, because everybody can tell when it's off rhythm and there's not a synergy with it and it doesn't fit. So there'll be other tangible things that people give you in do's and don'ts. I won't do that in this moment. What I'll say and restate is, whomever you are though, be authentically you, because that's how consistent you're going to be in your engagement. People will know what that interaction is going to be like, and that's how they choose to engage in that or not.
Yeah, and I mean that's such an awesome point, Randale, because that skill, like showing up as authentically you, even when you're just trying to figure out
that's right
who you are and what you're doing, is important, and then it carries over to when you're trying to interview for a job. And you got to go into that interview as authentically yourself, because when you show up on day one on that campus, if you get that job, you got to be the exact same that you were in that interview, right? So and really these networking calls, outreaches, whatever you want to term them, they're mini interviews. Because I mean, back to your point, Brian, when we're talking about coaches, I have folks reach out all the time saying, "Hey, can you visit with a young up and comer assistant coach?" And I welcome this, because it helps me in that coaching space, but it's also beginning to help others with their interview skills. It also helps us, I think, as we interview, to ask the right questions to try to get to the core of who a person is, because we want the right people around us in order to help drive us forward. But it's neat that we have the opportunity that's baked in really to the CALS experience.
I mean,
Just to develop
I
that
think that
skill.
authentic and being yourself, like people see that. Like, so Randale's a nicer person I am because I will tell you like the things don't, right? Like when you're trying to introduce yourself to Randale, but then all you're doing the whole conversation while he's talking is looking around him to see what next AD you can get to that you think is bigger and badder.
Right.
That's a pet peeve. Getting too what's the right word? Sorry to use a big word. Don't get too crazy at the bar in the afternoons in the networking session. You can lose an opportunity by getting a little too comfortable, right? You want to be yourself, but realize like the still environment you want to be their best self. I think you have to realize, and Jeff, I think this is the point you were making so often, like these impressions matter, whatever you're doing, right? This matters, right? Somebody's gonna view this one day. But at the same time, when you're at CALS, I tell people all the time, you're interviewing for your next job every day at your current job. And I don't mean that because you're trying to job hop, but I think people are always evaluating what you're doing, how you go about your business. And for some, that one time, twice interaction at CALS is their everlasting impression of who you are, what you're about, or how you carry yourself. And they may say, hey, can I see them represent my institution, representing this job I'm representing, or would I refer them for this AD opportunity? Like, so you just never know who's watching. But the biggest thing for me is like attack the moment. You are in a room full of movers, shakers, people that have experiences, regardless of what brand you're wearing on your shirt or your lapel pin, all that. You've got an ability to tap into a ton of knowledge, right? Like if I go to CALS this year and I don't spend some time with you two and every other individual in that room asking, what are you doing on this? What are you doing on this? In this world where we're all trying to figure it out, I've missed a really big opportunity. So you got to set your work off to the side a little bit. Like I know a lot of people will come in and it's through the middle of football season and we all got heavy responsibilities. Right. But if you show up and you sit on your computer answering emails that entire time versus paying attention to those panels or talking to the person to the right and left of you, you missed that opportunity. So attack that moment and milk the hell out of this experience because you got so much at your fingertips.
Yeah, and to that point, so one of my CALS experiences was an interaction with John Gilbert. John Gilbert's the athletic director in North Carolina, but at the time, he was the athletic director at Southern Miss, and I was still at Santa Clara. We had a good conversation. Next thing I know, there's an opportunity at Southern Miss, and I'm the deputy athletic director at Southern Miss working with John. And but for the CALS interaction, that probably doesn't happen, but it was, to your point, Brian, you milked the hell out of that, that opportunity. And John was in a space where he was open and receptive to engaging in a really meaningful conversation. And that story obviously is personal to me and resonates with me, but there are countless others that have had that opportunity as well. And I think that's the beauty of CALS and the networking. And that, that's a moment for me that I will always remember and appreciate. You guys have something similar or have heard stories about?
One of my favorite ones I was able to go to, Greg Loss, who's our deputy AD now. He has some other elevated title, but he's my number 1A, 1B. That's my guy. So Greg and I used to work together here at Kent State years ago, and we built up the programs here in the internal areas. Then I go off to ODU, and 2 years later, Greg goes off to Texas Tech. So the one CALS before I was able to introduce myself to Kirby Holcutt, his AD there at Texas Tech, and just talking about how Greg's my guy and how special he is that we came to this industry and how greatly he talked about Kirby. And then, the next year is Greg and I at different institutions at CALS together. Like, I'll never forget that type of experience. And then the engagements that we had because of that. And because I engaged with Will Reese and Ren Baker, then now they're introducing me, name dropping, right, to Ryan Alpert, Brian White, and Tommy. I learned about that whole crew. So you realize there are different crews. So then you get an idea of, these are different crews of access to information. You know what I mean? And they got an amazing story to tell, and that's how you get into the space. And later on in life, it begins to help us with football games because we're reaching out and they know of a person. So it's not difficult to get on the phone. And the majority of the football games that we've needed to engage in, we have to do a different budget model strategy here at Kent State. Because of those organic, genuine relationships, we're on the phone getting deals that serve this campus and serve our student athletes because that's what we got to do. And if not for that introduction and those collision moments, as they call them, we don't have that conversation, or they're taking that deal in that game elsewhere. So I'm hyper focused on how that impacts our young people. So, and at that same, event, I will never forget search firms. We haven't touched on that in their space there, in a more relaxed manner. I'll never forget. This is one search firm. He reached out to Marcus Bowman. Marcus, Greg, and I ended up taking Uber together to go get some barbecue. Before we all head to a plane. And I remember Glenn Sugiyama saying to him at the time,
"Hey, real quick though, it can't compare to the barbecue that Bryan Blair makes, right?
Now that's a TV show top shelf. We could have a whole podcast on that. I'm just sitting taking notes.
That's right.
I'll never forget though Glenn saying so because Blair. Marcus is still suited and booted now. You know what I mean? He's like, yeah, that's how you do it, young fella. I'm like, dang, missed an opportunity. You know what I mean? Like, so you just learning just different things and how you get on different people's radars from it. You know what I mean? So that's one of another collision moment interaction. It happens because of CALS.
Yeah, I'll give Randale a shout out, actually. So when I was at Rice and he was at Old Dominion, right, similar paths and unit oversight and the likes. And so we connected a lot of different professional development events from time to time, and obviously wasn't invited out for barbecue. But otherwise, and I don't get notes, but otherwise we're good friends. And so we'd always exchange. And so there was a young guy that had worked at ODU in fundraising, and Randale introduced me to him. So it ended up being Drew with CSA. And so he introduces me to Drew. Drew and I start to form a relationship. Well, fast forward, I'm at Washington State as a deputy. Toledo job opened up. Well, who has it but CSA? Well, Drew doesn't get you a job, right? But certainly they have the conversation to say, hey, tell me about what they're looking for in Toledo and would I be a good fit and all these kind of things. That made that conversation a lot easier because I wasn't calling him out of the blue for the one time he had a job. We had born a relationship, but I probably don't have that same level of relationship, or certainly don't start the way I did without the warm handoff from Randale saying, hey, here's somebody you should know, right? And so I think even within this circle, there's a connection that was made that ultimately ended up in me having the position here, which I'm incredibly grateful for.
All love, man. It's been kicking my butt ever since, too, man. I'm starting to go back to former Richmond. What you doing? No. Talent always rises, man. Talent always rises.
Yeah, I think the search firm comments are important because, especially for the young administrators that are going to show up maybe for the first time at CALS in Fayetteville, are going to be exposed to search firm professionals for the first time. And I don't think that we can underscore the significance of just being yourself when you talk to them and interact with them, and whether it's a one-on-one situation or whether it is in that small group, where you interact with ADs and search firms and soak up what they're telling you. I think they're being genuine, when they talk about the process and talk about, the fact that it takes time. Right. And really you win when you just get to know people and follow up with them. And it's a very organic, natural relationship development situation as opposed to the transactional element. But, just try not to be weird when you.
That's going to be the title of the podcast. Try not to be weird. CALS Fayetteville.
That's awesome.
What keeps you guys coming back? Like, we're in it now where it's, kind of pencil that weekend in October, whether it's the first weekend, second weekend, we know we're going somewhere. And what keeps you going back? We probably addressed it all, but let's synthesize.
I think to me, so much of it is all that we've been talking about and chatting about, and the relationships. And I think you can even see the camaraderie, hopefully the viewers can, on the screen, of just flashbacks of who we were and where we were at as we come up. And Jeff, you and I would text from time to time and talk about things, commonalities. It's the same with Randale. So to see that come to life and then now us be in a position, I think that's certainly a part of it. I think the thing to me too, so Greg Byrne was my mentor through another professional development program. And he said something to me about NACTA. He said a lot of ADs don't like to walk through the lobby at NACTA because they just get approached by hundreds of people. And it's hard to make it from one end of the lobby to the other. But if you don't do that, you're forgetting about where you came from and who you were at that moment. And that's always stuck with me. And so to take that walker at the same time, go back to CALS, say, not only can I grow, because I've got a lot of growing and doing a lot of things that I need to get better at, relationships to build, but also if there's an opportunity for me to share something with a young person, or maybe they're from a small town in South Carolina, or maybe they've got some other commonality. They say, I can see myself in that person's shoes. You want to be that example, and you can only do that by being visible in those moments. And so I think the opportunity to serve, but also the opportunity to get better, there's very few places you can do it as effectively as CALS.
Yeah, for me, it's because it's substantive. Like we people all day, man. And we got to put it on, because that's our job. And, when we do that, it's going to serve our young people, and at the same time, going somewhere and engaging in a space where you have people who you share the same language with because they've been on the journey that you've been on. And then for me, it's special seeing you two in those rooms, because I know the journey and others that are there. We realize and we watch people's journeys. And then we get to learn how people have continued to evolve and grow. And I'm always going to be, in a unique way, appreciative of Will, because he put me in rooms that I didn't even think I belonged in at the time period that he had me in some of those rooms. It'd be interesting to see. I've never asked him why or what he saw me, but I'll never forget when he was introducing me to a group of top-level administrators and ADs. He said, Randale's next up. And I don't know why he said it. I don't know why he engaged that way. It was always my goal. But this guy, again, you run the program. Like, why are you engaging with me in his nature? Now you're introducing me to people, and you're putting your professional stamp on my character. I'll never forget that moment. And because that's who he is. If you see him Forrest running around his pops, like, it means something different, right? Then he's got a sister up there working. Since like going to like the best mom and pops like diner like in your locale. But this one has got the aesthetics of a 5-star restaurant, but it feels like a mom and pops like diner piece. And I'm not putting it on. I'm talking honestly about how I feel about the engagement event. And yet and still, everyone's professional and we're handling business. It's an amazing dynamic to hit it down the middle of the fairway in that way. So for me, it's therapeutic even, being in those places and spaces. And I get energized by those people who are change agents in the rooms. I can take that back to campus and get ready to go. It's just good being around that ilk of human being.
Yeah, you said it really well. I mean, for me, I'm excited about this one in particular because, we're facing some unprecedented issues that are impacting our enterprise, and to be able to get together as a group of people that continue to be invested and interested and want to be leaders in this space that's changing so rapidly. I can't wait to collaborate and pick people's brains and just be around, just to really saturate ourselves in this conversation. But back to your point about Will, his whole vision for CALS has been to create champions, and by investing in a lot of people, right? He's put people in positions to grow and develop, and of course, the three of us are certainly beneficiaries of what Will's vision was for CALS when he started it 14 years ago, and the best is yet to come, I think, as he continues to grow and develop the program. But guys, I want to thank you for joining this conversation in this first ever CALS Report podcast, and look forward to seeing you guys in Fayetteville. And we look forward to working with some up and comers, right? That one day we'll have the opportunity to sit in the chair and be leaders in the wonderful work that we do in intercollegiate athletics and higher education. So see you guys soon, and we look forward to seeing everybody.
None before, none after, fellas, huh?
I love it.
Thank you for joining us for the inaugural episode of the CALS Report. Be sure to follow and subscribe on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. You can also connect with us on Instagram at the CALS Report and Twitter at AD Symposium for more updates. For more information on CALS or to get in touch, visit our website at www.adsymposium.us. A big thank you again to Hunter Yurachek, Bryan Blair, Randale Richmond, and Jeff Mitchell for joining us. And of course, thank you for listening. We're excited to continue these conversations and watch this podcast grow alongside the amazing CALS community. For Will Reese, I'm Ryan Bradley, and this has been the CALS Report. Until next time, stay connected and keep leading the way in college athletics.